Chief, how many officers are under investigation at the moment?
That part we're not talking about today. We're talking about the criminal enterprise investigation into the massage operations. The other part about the internal administrative investigation into employees, as well as criminal investigation. Those investigations aren't completed yet, so I'm not at liberty to talk about that.
Are you making any arrests at all today, Chief? Are you arresting anybody?
No, we're still working with the prosecution to determine what charges to be brought forward. However, our portion of the investigation has been completed. We did talk with the prosecutors prior to releasing this information, and they're fully aware that this is going on and do not have any problems with us releasing that information.
Chief, could you go back over what the investigations are now? That is, or what, like maybe a flow chart or something?
Sure. We have it's called a continuing criminal enterprise investigation onto two operations that were going on that we have determined have been connected. Those are an investigation being conducted by our Special Investigations Division Organized Crime Unit. We also have an internal administrative investigation being conducted by our Office of Internal Affairs, and that's involved any involvement of police employees, looking at it from a non-criminal aspect, but purely from an administrative aspect. Also, the Department of Public Safety has been asked, and they have taken over the criminal investigation of any police employees to determine what would be done in that regard from a criminal nature.
What kind of information did you receive about employees? Were they soliciting these places? Were they working with these?
We're not going to
firms?
talk about anything with involvement of city employees.
You're only going to talk about the people.
Only
at the heart
talking
of
for the organized
bystands,
criminal
website.
investigation.
The internal affairs investigation, does it include any other city employees outside of the police department?
Our internal
Firefighters?
affairs investigations only focuses on TPD employees. The Special Investigation Division, they can investigate other city employees, and if any were involved in the SID investigation, that wouldn't be separated out like TPD employees are.
Will you comment on whether any other city employee was being investigated by the SID?
Remember, at this point, we haven't charged anyone with any crimes, and until that occurs, we're not going to be releasing names of individuals.
Can you explain kind of the breadth of this investigation? You know, how many people might be implicated? Like how can we kind of estimate like how big this is in the grand scheme of things?
No, I can't, because again, this is going to take a lot of cooperation with the prosecution and the prosecuting authorities as to who ultimately faces charges on this. You're not only talking from a criminal aspect. I know that there's a lot of public interest about this because of the public employee, the potential public safety employee involvement, and not just within Tucson Police Department, but other public safety agencies. And so at this point, I don't have a final number for you.
What other public safety agencies are we talking about?
I'm not going to be able to comment on that at this time.
Moving back to the brothel operators, how many years maximum would they face under the charges that were, for example, listed in the civil forfeiture from May 27th?
I'm sorry, sir, I really don't delve into what the final thing is, and so much of that is relevant to what the judges decide. You know, there's always a minimum and a maximum given for every type of offense, and for these type of offenses, for the organized criminal activity, you are going to be dealing with some felony offenses, and so it's going to depend a lot onto the judge. If you wanted, you know, we can probably get you a range later on as to what the range would be, minimum to maximum, for the potential charges that could be looked at.
How long were these places operated?
I'm sorry, what was
How
that?
long were these places under operation?
Like I said, we received some anonymous tips back in 2011. Now, how long before then, we don't know. Were they really active at that point? We don't know, but you would assume there was something going on to cause someone to call 888 crime and provide a tip. So at least we can go back to 2011, December 2011.
Chief, if this special investigation unit hadn't been put into place last year, this would have continued and nobody would have been able to find information.
There's no way to know that, because occasionally we have investigations that come forward, and even though we don't have a dedicated assigned unit to those investigations, we always try and scramble and put things together. I think the reality of what's going on here is we're all looking at it with the benefit of hindsight. We're taking a piece here, a piece there, we're putting it all together because now we know all this information. At the time it was going on, there wasn't any knowledge of interconnected or interrelated activity. I know it probably comes across, I'm trying to make excuses, I'm not. This is a reality of what reduced staffing and not enough or sufficient resources does to any city law enforcement agency. So no, I don't think it would go on and that people can act with impunity. But when your public safety agencies are understaffed, I think it's quite common that we're not going to be as efficient as we would like to be. I wish we would have, had a unit back in 2011 that we could immediately put on this. But the fact of the matter is, we had to make difficult decisions in 2008 how to operate as a city, and we historically had not had huge vice issues since then. The issue of human trafficking and sex trade has grown exponentially in the past few years, which is one of the reasons why we reconstituted, so to speak, an organized crime unit to look at those type of entities and to try and combat the issue of human trafficking. And so, we're spanning a period here of 7 or 8 years. Times change, priorities change, but it's hard to understand that.
Chief, is there any indication of human trafficking in this instance?
That's what we're trying to determine and looking at. Right now, I don't think that we have anything that's going towards that aspect of human trafficking. It's more of an organized criminal enterprise activity, but you never know what an investigation is going to show up. Where we would concentrate in the past, and Carla, this is kind of an answer to your, whenever we would get a complaint, particularly that involved juveniles or underage members, whether we had a unit or not, we investigated those. So we would try and prioritize these complaints based on what was involved. And, so there's no saying, but at this point, we have no indications that I'm aware of underage involvement in this or human trafficking aspects.
Now, Chief, are you going to arrest the people involved in this organized criminal organization as well as the Johns? Are you going to arrest both people?
That's something that we're going to consult with the prosecution authorities. That's really where the determination is made. Our job is to gather all the information at this because it's such a complex investigation. We're not going to make that decision. We're going to do that in consultation with the prosecuting authorities, who will ultimately have the say on where those charges go and who gets charged with anything.
So it's up to the prosecutor?
Pretty much.
Because I'm sure a lot of us here have been on ride-alongs with the vice squads back in the day,
Sure.
and they would arrest.
Different type of operation. We were talking street level prostitution at that point. This was a much more sophisticated operation, which we're seeing across the country now. The use of technology, the use of sites like Backpage.com, the face of sex trafficking has changed dramatically over the past 5 to 10 years. And it's really more of an organized business now than an individual going out there and or a pimp out there running 1 or 2, prostitutes. It's a different type of animal now, and it's a different type of investigation.
Chief, there was an announcement there were 4 employees that were suspended. Has that number increased?
I don't believe we have suspended anyone at this point. We have placed people whose name have come up on administrative leave, so to speak. I know maybe it's mincing words here. What's suspension? What's administrative leave? But for me, a suspension is a result of a finalized disciplinary action, whereas administrative leave is trying to make sure that someone's not out there who shouldn't be out there representing us.
How many are on that?
Can't comment on that right now.
Administrative leave is the same thing as paid leave, correct?
Correct.
Can you give us the bottom line on this whole thing?
Bottom line on this whole thing, I don't, obviously I am rather disgusted by the fact that we have public safety employees who potentially are involved in this. It goes against what we stand for. For those who did choose to partake in this, if they did, and our investigation shows that they did, then that tarnishes the badge and the reputation of all those people who are on the agency that go out and do a good job day in and day out, and that infuriates them. I also, though, understand the public's need to make sure that we root this out We take care of business here, and you know, it's very easy to say, well, and I've read some of your reports and some of your stories about that we're dragging our feet on this and we're taking way too long. That's not the case. This is a complex investigation. This is requiring a lot of corroboration of different parts and different pieces. And in actuality, I think that anyone who's employed by public safety is going to have a much stiffer penalty or outcome than anyone who isn't, which is probably justified.
How are we going to know if other public agencies were involved? How are you going to report that to the community? How do we know
When
that?
it's all done, when it's all done and completed and the investigation is done, charges have been brought forward, all of that becomes public document.
You're going to release a John's list at some point.
The people that we have involved with this, once the trial is going and once any charges are brought, all information becomes available.
How long is that list?
Like I said, I don't know.